But pre-event, planning for these things, how do you make sure that the food is safe? Allergens are real. We just saw the news about a Disney influencer actually dying from a holiday food event where people told her that there were no peanuts in the food. There were. She was highly allergic and she passed away. Imagine that happening at your event. So I am joined by Tracy Stuckrath, who runs the podcast Eating at a Meeting, and her company, it's Thrive Consulting. Is that right?
Meetings and Events, Thrive Consulting. Yep.
Thrive Meeting and Events. So Tracy has been educating me for the last couple of years on food allergens because I'm one of those lucky people where so far, knock on wood, I don't have any allergies. And so I tend to not really think about it. And then we just did an event on Wednesday where we had an attendee who said, I'm just not going to eat. And we said, you know what? Let us take care of you. Let's make sure that you feel safe. So it's really, really important. And I would love for you to share a little bit more about what you do and why you got into this.
So I'll start with the why. And I am a meeting planner and I got diagnosed with a food allergy. And when I first started telling hotels and when I was planning my events, I couldn't eat any of them. And when I did an event at Disney one time, my allergies were on all 90 pages of my BEO, and I was mortified. I'm like, oh my gosh, why? And the chef's like, well, if I don't tell my team, then they don't know what to do. And I thought that was a really important aspect of it, but it really has come a lot longer than that, since that was 2003. And I started Thrive in 2010 to educate our industry on how to feed me and the millions of other people with dietary restrictions. And in the US alone, there's 33 million people and 26 million of them are adults.
Yeah.
And so they're going to our meetings. And it really is, when I speak and I train and I teach, it's understanding what those different dietary restrictions are. And I break it into 5 different categories: food allergies, medical conditions such as celiac disease, diabetes, even like fibromyalgia. There's different reasons you have to eat a different way. Religious-based practices, personal lifestyle choices, and then physical ability. And can your attendees reach the buffet? Can your attendees who utilize wheelchairs or scooters get to the space? And how is that experience for them? But really, and thinking through your menus and I help code your menus, go through them and really test them to make sure that they don't have the allergens.
Yeah, no, it's so important. We actually, we had our one food allergen person, severe. Then we talked to a caterer on Wednesday, explained everything. They went to the trouble of actually creating the menu and putting every single ingredient that on a list for every single thing so that our guest would feel safe looking through it and understanding that she was safe. And then one of the other guests came up, saw the page, looked at it and said, I've never seen a caterer do this before. I feel so cared for. It was just a remarkable moment.
Yeah, and I did it. And I think it's hard. And I use that example, when you go to Whole Foods, whoever goes to Whole Foods and eats at the hot bar, right? They've got all the ingredients there, which is important. But when you have a buffet line, that's really hard to look at, especially if it's a long list. So preparing that and giving that on your event app, putting that up so attendees can actually look for it before they get to the space. That's a great idea. And know what they're going to be able to eat. But also I created for this one event that I worked, it was on one of those ring things, and the banquet captains had every single dish item that they had in their back pocket, because the BEO is hard to look at sometimes as well. So it was really there. It was in big letters. It had every dish with all the ingredients in it. So that was easily accessible for the event team as well, because they get asked a lot of questions.
Yeah. Okay. So we have buffets, we have plated dinners, we have snacks. There's just so much to think about. How in the world can an event professional actually pay attention to all this stuff, in addition to attendee communications and contract negotiations and nutrition and audience acquisition? How do we do it all? There's a lot of detail in food.
There is a lot of detail in food. And I say that it's our number one expense and the thing that we spend the least amount of time on, but it could potentially kill somebody, as we saw last week. And Liz, that was the day I was speaking at North Star Events. It happened that night. Dominique passed away. No relation to the events at all, but I was just speaking on this that day. But we need to think about it from the very beginning when we're doing our RFPs, asking your catering partners, who on their staff is trained in food allergens, who in their staff is responsible for managing and expediting those meals, and then who on their staff is responsible for labeling the food. I'm going to say 99.9% of the time, the front of the house staff is responsible for labeling the food, and the back of the house staff it makes it and knows what's into it, but they don't talk.
Right.
And there's not
oh
a
my
lot
gosh.
of
And like we saw this, we were
conversation.
at an event that David Stevens has put this on LinkedIn, who took a picture of it. It was labeled human layer salt. I don't know what human layer salt is, but it sounds like something I should need. It was clearly supposed to be Himalayan salt, and someone either
Right.
voice texted or just didn't check it or something, but it matters.
It does. It does, because you can't tell. Well, it's even the young lady who died a couple of weeks ago. Somebody decided to make the brownies gluten-free, and they used peanut flour instead of regular wheat flour, and didn't tell anybody. And she ate the brownie and died of an allergic reaction because no one confirmed, or no one said, hey, by the way, I used peanut flour instead. And it's those little tiny things that you don't have any idea what the minute ingredients are. You may be able to see that it's chicken and pasta and a cream sauce. So you're going to assume that there's butter in there and wheat and things like that. But we need the transparency. And I don't want you to have to put the labeling like on Whole Foods buffets, but you need to have it in the back of the house.
Right,
you need to know.
Right. So there was a question in the chat asking you to relist out your categories. So I have allergens, medical, religious, personal, and physical. Is that right?
Yep. Food allergies, medical, religious, personal, lifestyle choices, and physical. Yep.
Okay. So then there's a little bit of an encampment of people who are like, just take care of yourself. I can't deal with it. Everybody is like, well, I don't really like tomatoes, or I'm averse to large amounts of lard, or like whatever their things are. I can't take care of everybody. The food is what it is. It's labeled. You do what you want. What should we be thinking? How should we be going about this?
Well, it starts with your registration form. You need to be asking your attendees up front. And because food allergies, because the ADA was amended in 2008 and added breathing and eating as major life activities, putting that question, do you have any food allergies or medical needs that necessitate you eating a specific way? Mark it here. And then you can put the list of, are there any other dietary needs? Right. And then, so you have a distinction between them, and you can say, these are non-life threatening medical or food.
Okay. So medically necessary dietary restrictions is question number one. And then food preferences, question number two. So when you're planning your menu, your caterers can deal with food preferences, but must deal with medically necessary conditions or religious necessary conditions.
Yes. And we should, the religious should be thrown into that medical, but it's not a life, it doesn't fall under the ADA. And so, but it is just as important. And one of my chef friends, like, I'm going to accommodate your medical needs and your religious needs before I accommodate your preferences.
Right.
And you do need to know that there are more than 170 foods that are known to cause allergic reactions.
170 foods.
More than that. But only 9 here in the US are regulated as top 9 allergens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the food cards that you have, because I've seen on your website that you sell cards. Are they intended for people with allergies to use, or what are they?
They are, as I get up and
you don't have any next to you, do you? Yeah, there you go.
So these are meal cards that you can hand your attendees when they register. And they put it in their badge or their back pocket if you're not doing badges with plastic holders, right? And they can hand these to the attendee or to the server and say, this is me. You know, I have a wheat allergy, or I have a pork allergy. No pork. I'm pulling another one out. Here's a wheat allergy card. And it is written in English and Spanish.
Nice.
Because a lot of our servers don't speak English. And which is no fault, but we need them to be able to understand. And so I sell these in packs of 50 for $24.95, but I'll give Club Ichi, anybody following this, I'll give you a discount. Let's go and do it.
It's who you know, people.
Exactly. We're going into 2025. So I'll give you a 25% discount if you go online website and buy these before the end of the year.
That's amazing. Yep. What's your website?
It is, go to thrivemeetings.com/store.
That's amazing. Okay, so for those of you that are watching, we are taking each of these segments and we will break them up into their segment times. They will be available on Club Ichi TV, our YouTube channel. So you can rewatch this, you can share this with your team. And then Tracy, that 25% discount is, tell the website one more time.
thrivemeetings.com/store.
Fantastic. And I think it's actually a /, but yes.
Or //.
Okay, so I would love to know what is like final closing thoughts that we should be thinking about when we're planning all of the food, the BEO. Is there something that we should just take it off the menu? Like, don't even think about it. It is more than a top 170 thing. Just remove it, or anything like that.
I mean, if you can avoid nuts at all costs. But then again, individuals who are vegan rely on the protein in that. So it's really kind of, it's looking at your menus across the board and designing your menus holistically based on the dietary needs of your attendees as a whole.
Okay, so the biggest takeaway is add the question on your reg site.
Yes.
Find out if there's an issue, because when you find out the day before the event and someone texts you and says, oh, by the way, I can't have this, and everything's already planned, paid for, and everything, that's a problem.
Well, and then I'm going to say the second almost equal priority is to make sure that you're talking to your culinary team way in advance to design those menus and understand their capabilities. There's a lot of food allergy laws that are coming out, and we need to make sure that they're up on them.
That's such good advice. All right. And so what are our final thoughts on the actual like preparation of food and contamination? Because I think that's one of the other things that we can plan the food all we want, but if it's a buffet and one spoon goes into the next thing, like what do we think about that?
It's really hard to manage. And I think you need to make sure that there's somebody there monitoring it, the spoon distribution. But if somebody has a very severe allergy to something, I would be giving them a personalized plate versus them having to go through the buffet, because it does make it a lot safer for them, versus having to go through the buffet and not knowing whether that spoon was dished into something else.
So logistically, how do you manage that? If you've got a conference of 5,000 people and 6 of them have some sort of specific issue, how do they know who to find? You're in a big ballroom with a bunch of tables. What do you do?
I would make sure that they have a meal card, a dietary needs card, and I would also introduce them to the banquet captains. You also need to have a culinary concierge, and that's what I serve as for my clients, is a culinary concierge. And they have my phone number, my cell phone number, they have my email address. They can ask any questions of me about the menus, and they can come to me, and I will introduce them to the banquet captains and make sure that they get the right meals throughout the event.
That's great. We used to have a table set up over on the side that was like, you're going to go look for this person. You're going to tell them that you're here and they will take care of it. Is that kind of how you manage it?
Yes. And I mean, but I worked in an event that had 17,000 people and we had 685 people with dietary restrictions. And I know. And it was really well done because the servers, and this was at MGM, the servers guided everybody to the back of the banquet hall, but all the personalized plates were up front and they were blocking that sign. So you really need to also make sure that it's crystal clear on where they go and who they need to talk to. Because if I've walked all the way to the other side of the banquet hall and my meal is over here, I'm going to be a little hangry as well. And none of the servers knew what to do. So I think making sure that we're crystal clear and you're communicating with them as much as possible, because not all of us read our notes so just make sure you're following up with them so that they have that idea, and give it to them when they get their badge. Give them the meal card and explain the process to them when they're picking up their badges.
No, that's great.
Or their lanyards.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here with us today. It was such an important topic, so timely with all the things that have happened. So we've spent this morning talking a lot about safety, physical safety, and how to make sure that our attendees are safe. And I think that this is an incredible topic for us to wrap it up on. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Now I'm going to go put onto my website, thrivemeetings.com, and put in that code for Club Ichi. And the password will be Club Ichi.
I love it. Club Ichi. So those of you who are Ichiken, jump over to thrivemeetings.com and get your cards with a 25% discount using the code Club Ichi.
Yep.
And Tracy, how can they find you? Thrive Meetings? Is that the best place?
They
LinkedIn?
can thrivemeetings.com, Eating at a Meeting podcast, or if you just go to eatingatameeting.com, you can listen to all my podcast episodes as well that talk about all this and a whole bunch more about food and beverage.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. So now